Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into the dusty world of ancient Egypt, where the golden light of the rising sun paints the Nile in shimmering colors, palm trees sway gently in the warm breeze, and towering temples seem to promise a life filled with wonder. It sounds peaceful enough, until you realize that you're not a mighty pharaoh wrapped in gold, nor a wealthy noble relaxing in a shaded garden. You're just an ordinary person trying to survive another day. And, well, you probably won't survive this. At least not without sore feet, aching muscles, and more chores than you ever imagined possible. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what your local time is. It's always fascinating to see how many different corners of the world gather together for these sleepy journeys through history. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You awaken before the sun has fully climbed above the eastern horizon. There is no alarm clock, no buzzing phone, and certainly no chance of pressing a snooze button. Instead, the world itself gently nudges you awake. A rooster calls somewhere nearby. Donkeys shuffle impatiently in a dusty courtyard. The faint rustle of reeds along the Nile mixes with quiet voices as neighbors begin another day. The first thing you notice is the warmth. Even before sunrise, the air carries the promise of another hot afternoon. Your home, built from mud bricks dried beneath the relentless Egyptian sun, has held onto yesterday's heat. It isn't uncomfortable yet, but you know exactly what the middle of the day will feel like. You sit up slowly on a simple woven mat. Luxury is a distant dream for people like you. There are no soft mattresses or fluffy pillows waiting nearby. Instead, your back reminds you that sleeping on woven reeds every night has never been particularly kind to the human body. Outside, the village is already coming alive. Smoke begins curling into the morning sky as families prepare the day's first bread. Someone carries jars toward the river. Children rub sleep from their eyes while older brothers and sisters prepare for work instead of school. A dog lazily stretches in a narrow alley before deciding that finding shade is today's first important task. Ancient Egypt often appears in modern imagination as a land of glittering pyramids, majestic statues, and magnificent pharaohs. Those monuments certainly exist, but they occupy only a tiny corner of everyday life. Most people will never wear gold jewelry. Most people will never enter a royal palace. Most people will never meet a pharaoh. Instead, your world is measured in harvests, family meals, flooded fields, aching hands, and tomorrow's uncertain weather. Everything depends upon the Nile. Without the great river, this land would simply become another stretch of endless desert. Beyond the green ribbon of fertile soil waits an ocean of sand that seems to continue forever. The contrast is remarkable. One step too far from the river, and life begins to disappear. As you leave your home, the smell of damp earth rises from yesterday's irrigation. Farmers are already walking toward the fields, carrying wooden tools, polished smooth from years of use. They don't speak much. The morning still carries enough coolness to make work pleasant, and everyone knows the sun will soon remove that small blessing. Birds glide low over the river, searching for breakfast. Tiny fish disturb the calm surface. Somewhere farther downstream, fishermen are already pushing reed boats into the water. Your village isn't large. Most people know everyone else by name, along with their parents, grandparents, and probably every embarrassing childhood story worth remembering. Privacy is almost impossible, in a place where homes stand close together and daily life unfolds outdoors. If someone argues with their spouse, neighbors hear it. If someone bakes especially good bread, neighbors smell it. If someone's goat escapes, everyone helps chase it. Life is deeply connected, whether people always enjoy that closeness or not. You glance toward the distant horizon where enormous stone monuments rise above the landscape. They seem almost unreal in the morning light. Travelers who visit Egypt centuries later will marvel at these incredible structures and wonder how such greatness was achieved. Standing here, however, those monuments feel surprisingly distant. You don't spend your days admiring them. You spend your days trying to make sure your family has enough food. History often remembers kings, because kings leave statues. Ordinary people leave footprints, and footprints disappear remarkably quickly. Your hands already carry small scars from years of work. Tiny cuts earned while harvesting grain, calluses formed from gripping wooden handles, fingernails stained by soil that never seems to wash away completely. These are the quiet marks of ordinary Egyptian life. No one writes poems about sore shoulders. No one builds monuments celebrating successful bread baking. Yet without countless ordinary workers, even the greatest temples would never rise. The morning breeze briefly cools your face. You pause beside the Nile, watching sunlight spread slowly across its calm waters. The river appears peaceful now, almost gentle enough to make you forget how completely it controls every part of your existence. Its floods determine whether families eat well or struggle. Its water keeps crops alive. Its fish provide valuable food. Its boats carry trade and news between distant cities. The Nile is not simply part of life. It is life itself. For a few quiet moments, everything feels calm. Birdsong fills the air. Water laps gently against muddy banks. Palm leaves whisper overhead. Soon the village will become louder. Tools will strike earth. Bakers will tend hot ovens. Children will chase one another before being called back to work. Animals will protest every instruction they receive, just as animals have done throughout history. But right now, in these first peaceful moments, before the full weight of another day settles onto everyone's shoulders, you almost understand why poets speak so lovingly about Egypt. It is beautiful. It is fertile. It is alive. It is also far more difficult than its monuments ever reveal. Because behind every magnificent temple stood thousands of ordinary people waking before dawn, carrying water, tending crops, repairing homes, raising children, and hoping that tomorrow would be just a little easier than today. That hidden struggle, not the glittering treasures of kings, is the story you are about to live. And as the golden sun finally climbs above the horizon, your long day in ancient Egypt has only just begun. The peaceful glow of sunrise does not last very long. Within what feels like only a few moments, the cool morning air begins surrendering to the growing strength of the Egyptian sun. The gentle breeze that drifted across the Nile becomes warmer, and every villager seems to move just a little faster, eager to finish the hardest tasks before the afternoon heat turns every movement into an exhausting chore. You don't have the luxury of easing into the day. Breakfast is simple because it has to be. A round loaf of coarse barley bread sits on a clay plate beside a few onions, and perhaps a handful of dates if your family has been fortunate recently. There might be a small cup of weak beer, brewed not for celebration but because it is often safer to drink than standing water. It is thick, slightly sour, and nothing like the cold drinks people enjoy thousands of years in the future. Still, it fills your stomach. That alone makes it valuable. Meals in ancient Egypt are not elaborate feasts for ordinary families. Most mornings begin with familiar foods prepared the same way your parents learned from their parents, and they learned from theirs. Variety is a rare visitor. You eat quickly. The day is already waiting. Before heading toward the fields, someone must collect fresh water. That responsibility falls to nearly every household at some point. Clay jars, surprisingly heavy even when empty, are balanced carefully on shoulders or carried by hand toward the Nile. The river gives life, but it also demands effort. Every drop that reaches your home has first been carried there by tired arms. The walk itself is peaceful. Morning birds dart among the papyrus reeds. Dragonflies skim the river's surface like tiny flashes of blue and green. Fish leap occasionally, sending gentle ripples across the calm water. If you ignore the coming workload, the Nile almost feels like a place meant for quiet reflection. Of course, nobody has much time for reflection. Several neighbors have already arrived. Some fill jars. Others wash clothing by beating linen against smooth stones. Children splash too close to deeper water before anxious parents quickly call them back. A pair of fishermen untangle woven nets while discussing whether today's catch will be generous or disappointing. Nobody truly knows. The Nile is generous most days. But most days is never the same as every day. You kneel near the riverbank and lower the clay jar carefully into the water. It fills slowly, becoming heavier with every passing second. By the time you lift it back onto your shoulder, your muscles already protest. And this is only the beginning of the morning. The journey home feels longer, carrying nearly 20 kilograms of water. Every uneven stone beneath your sandals reminds you just how valuable water really is. Back home, nobody applauds. Nobody congratulates you. The jar is simply placed inside the house, because tomorrow someone will have to repeat the exact same task again. That is how much of life works here. The greatest achievements are often invisible because they happen every single day. Soon the fields begin calling. The fertile soil stretching beside the Nile looks rich and dark, compared with the endless yellow desert only a short distance away. Standing between those two worlds is almost surreal. On one side, life. On the other, silence. You grip your wooden hoe. Its handle is smooth from years of use. It isn't elegant, but it doesn't need to be. Every scratch tells the story of another harvest completed, another flood survived, another season endured. Work begins without ceremony. The earth must be loosened. Young plants must be protected. Weeds removed. Irrigation channels repaired. Animals watched carefully. There is always something demanding attention. If you pause for too long, someone notices, not because they're unkind, because everyone understands that every hour matters. Food grown today feeds families months from now. The sun continues climbing. Sweat forms across your forehead. Dust sticks to your arms. The scent of damp earth mixes with fresh vegetation as irrigation water slowly trickles through narrow canals carved by countless hands over generations. Nearby, another farmer whistles quietly while working. Someone farther away tells a joke about a stubborn donkey that apparently believes it owns more land than the pharaoh himself. A few tired laughs drift across the fields. Humor survives surprisingly well, even where comfort does not. Without laughter, difficult lives become even heavier. Around mid-morning, children arrive carrying small baskets of food for parents working farther from the village. They are young, very young, yet childhood here rarely lasts long. Even those barely tall enough to carry small bundles already understand responsibility. They help collect firewood, watch younger brothers and sisters, gather vegetables, scare birds away from grain. Their games often become practice for adulthood without anyone planning it that way. As the hours pass, the sunlight grows brighter until shadows shrink beneath your feet. The heat becomes impossible to ignore. Your linen clothing, designed to stay cool, helps only a little. You wipe sweat from your face again and again. Your hands continue working almost automatically. Across the valley, smoke rises gently from village ovens preparing more bread. Donkeys pull simple carts loaded with baskets. Goats wander wherever they think nobody is watching. Life flows onward with remarkable consistency. You realize something unusual. Nobody talks much about becoming rich. Nobody expects life to become dramatically easier. Instead, success is measured differently. A healthy harvest. Children surviving another year. Enough grain stored before the next flood. A roof repaired before heavy rains. Simple victories. Yet they matter more than grand dreams. In future centuries, travelers will stand before colossal temples and gaze upward in amazement. They will wonder how ancient Egypt became one of history's greatest civilizations. Very few will picture mornings like this. They will not imagine ordinary farmers wiping sweat from tired eyes before breakfast has fully settled. They will not think about heavy water jars carried every dawn, or cracked hands gripping wooden tools until sunset. Yet those ordinary mornings built extraordinary history. Every magnificent monument rested upon countless invisible routines repeated day after day by people whose names were never carved into stone. As you straighten your aching back for just a moment, the sun now blazing high above the Nile, you realize something quietly remarkable. Ancient Egypt is not powered by kings. It is powered by ordinary people who wake before dawn, work until exhaustion, and rise the next morning ready to do it all again. And your day has only just begun. The morning sun is no longer gentle. By now it hangs high enough above the Nile to remind you that ancient Egypt is a land of extremes. Life flourishes beside one of the world's greatest rivers, yet only a short walk away, endless desert stretches toward the horizon, shimmering beneath waves of heat. Your village survives in the narrow green ribbon between those two worlds. And home, well, home is not exactly the peaceful sanctuary people, thousands of years from now, might imagine. After several hours in the fields, you finally return to your mud brick house to complete the endless list of household chores waiting inside. The outside walls have done their best to keep the heat away, but the air indoors is still warm, carrying the familiar scent of clay, woven reeds, smoke from cooking fires, and freshly ground grain. The house is simple, very simple. Its walls are made from mud mixed with straw, shaped into bricks and baked beneath the Egyptian sun rather than inside large kilns. The roof is supported by wooden beams covered with reeds and packed earth. It works surprisingly well, although every year small cracks appear that must be repaired before they become larger problems. A home is never truly finished. It is always waiting for another repair. You glance upward. Dust floats lazily through narrow beams of sunlight entering from tiny windows placed high on the walls. Those small openings help keep the interior cooler while limiting the amount of scorching sunlight pouring inside. They also mean the house is never especially bright. Your eyes adjust slowly. The furniture is almost non-existent. A few low wooden stools, simple woven baskets, clay storage jars, reed mats rolled neatly against the wall, a wooden chest holding precious linen clothing that represents much of the family's wealth. Nothing more. There are no overflowing cupboards, no decorative shelves filled with ornaments. Every object inside the home serves a purpose. Luxury belongs somewhere else. The floor beneath your feet is packed earth, cooler than the blazing ground outside, but hardly soft. As you walk across it barefoot, tiny grains of sand somehow find their way between your toes. Sand has an impressive talent. It gets everywhere. You begin helping with another daily task. Grinding grain. A heavy stone rests upon another flat stone, while handfuls of barley are crushed into coarse flour. The movement is repetitive. Push, roll, lift, repeat. At first it seems almost peaceful. After half an hour, your shoulders begin disagreeing. This job happens nearly every day. Bread does not simply appear. Someone earns every loaf through patient labor. Nearby, another family member carefully spins flax fibers into thread. Linen clothing, although light enough for Egypt's intense climate, requires many hours of careful work before a single garment is ready to wear. Nothing is wasted. Old clothing becomes patches. Worn patches become cleaning cloths. Even broken baskets are repaired whenever possible. Replacing something is often far harder than fixing it. A sudden buzzing interrupts your thoughts. Flies. They seem determined to attend every meal, every chore, every quiet conversation. You wave one away. Another immediately arrives. Insects thrive beside the Nile. Mosquitoes appear near standing water. Beetles wander indoors. Ants investigate every forgotten crumb of bread. You quickly understand why ancient Egyptians became surprisingly skilled at inventing simple ways to keep pests away. Sometimes they succeeded. Often they simply learned patience. Outside, goats wander through narrow streets searching for anything edible. Chickens scratch endlessly in the dust. A donkey announces its opinions to the entire village with a loud, dramatic bray that somehow sounds both annoyed and deeply offended. Nobody pays much attention. That donkey complains every day. The sounds become part of life. The smell becomes part of life too. Livestock live close to people. Cooking fires burn throughout the day. Fresh bread mixes with smoke. Animal pens add their own unmistakable contribution. The village is alive, very alive. Modern cities may have engines and traffic. Ancient villages have animals. Sometimes it is difficult to decide which is louder. You step outside carrying a broken basket that needs repairing. Neighbors sit together beneath the limited shade offered by palm trees. Hands remain busy. One repairs sandals. Another shapes fresh clay pots. Someone else twists rope from plant fibers. Conversation flows naturally. Nobody wastes time simply sitting. Work and conversation happen together. News spreads quickly. A fisherman caught unusually large fish yesterday. One family's roof needs replacing. Another neighbor welcomed a newborn child. A goat wandered into someone's vegetable patch. That story somehow becomes funnier every time someone retells it. Community matters, because survival depends upon it. If your roof collapses, neighbors help rebuild. If illness strikes, neighbors share food. If floodwaters damage a home, neighbors appear carrying mud bricks before anyone even asks. Life is difficult enough. Facing it alone would be nearly impossible. The afternoon heat grows heavier. Even the village dogs search desperately for patches of shade beneath carts and trees. You notice something else. Silence. Not complete silence. Rather, a slower rhythm. People move carefully now. Nobody rushes beneath the strongest sunlight, unless absolutely necessary. The smartest workers understand that exhausting yourself before midday leaves little strength for tomorrow. Your skin feels sticky with sweat. Dust clings to your arms. The simple linen clothing that seemed perfectly comfortable this morning now feels damp against your back. Still, the chores continue. Clay jars need cleaning. Grain must be stored safely. Roof repairs cannot wait forever. Cooking fires require more fuel. Children need watching. Animals need feeding. Every completed task quietly creates another. History often remembers Egypt for magnificent pyramids and glittering royal tombs. Yet inside villages like yours, greatness looks very different. Greatness is a roof that survives another season. A loaf of bread shared among family, a repaired basket lasting another year, clean water waiting inside a cool clay jar. These small victories never become famous, but they keep civilizations alive. As afternoon light filters through drifting dust, you pause outside your humble home. It is not luxurious. It is not spacious. It certainly is not perfect. Yet within these simple mud brick walls, generations laugh, argue, celebrate births, mourn losses, share meals, and prepare themselves to face another demanding sunrise. The pyramids may symbolize ancient Egypt, but homes like yours, quiet, crowded, dusty, and endlessly busy, are where ancient Egypt truly lives. The afternoon stretches onward, and before long, your thoughts begin revolving around one thing more than anything else. Food, not because you're dreaming of an extravagant feast. Quite the opposite. You're wondering whether this season will provide enough. For ordinary people in ancient Egypt, every meal represents countless hours of labor. Bread does not simply appear on a table. Every loaf begins months earlier, as tiny grains planted into fertile Nile soil. Every onion pulled from the ground has survived heat, insects, uncertain weather, and patient care. Every fish caught from the river depends upon luck, skill, and the generosity of the Nile itself. Nothing is guaranteed. You step back into the fields where rows of barley and emmer wheat ripple gently beneath a warm afternoon breeze. The green landscape is beautiful, almost peaceful enough to make someone forget how much work hides beneath every harvest. But you know better. Every stalk standing before you has demanded effort from sunrise to sunset. The fields are alive with activity. Some farmers carefully inspect young plants for signs of damage. Others repair irrigation channels where flowing water has weakened the banks. A group nearby gathers bundles of flax that will eventually become linen clothing. Nobody stands still for very long. Time itself feels valuable. The growing season determines the coming year. One careless mistake today may become an empty storage jar months from now. You kneel beside the soil and gently crumble it between your fingers. It feels moist enough. For now, the Nile has blessed your village this season. Everyone quietly hopes it continues doing so. Nearby, an older farmer explains to a younger worker how to judge healthy crops simply by looking at their color. No written manual exists. Knowledge travels through conversation. Parents teach children. Grandparents teach grandchildren. Neighbors teach neighbors. Experience becomes one of the village's greatest treasures. As the afternoon continues, fishermen return from the river. Their reed boats glide slowly toward shore. Some smile, others remain quiet. That usually tells everyone enough. A good catch means fresh fish tonight. A poor catch means another meal, relying almost entirely upon bread and vegetables. Again, fish are cleaned quickly before the strongest heat can spoil them. Nothing useful is wasted. Bones become tools. Fish remains feed animals. Every resource finds another purpose. The smell of fresh bread drifts through the village once again. Clay ovens continue burning steadily. Women shape dough by practiced hands while children patiently wait nearby, hoping to receive the first warm loaf. Fresh bread is never ordinary. Even after eating it nearly every day, its comforting smell still lifts everyone's mood. Nearby, someone slices onions. Another family prepares lentils. A handful of figs rests inside a woven basket. If fortune smiles, perhaps there is a little honey, not much. Honey is precious. Dates offer sweetness more often than anything else. Meat appears only occasionally for many families. Large celebrations, religious festivals, special occasions. Those are the moments when roasted duck, goose, or beef might appear. For everyday life, bread remains king. It fills hungry stomachs. It stores reasonably well. It keeps people alive. You watch children eagerly chewing warm bread while laughing together beneath a palm tree. For a brief moment, work disappears. So does worry. Simple happiness has remarkable strength. Even here. Yet no meal is completely free from concern. Storage jars stand nearby, filled with precious grain. Each one represents security. Each one also carries risk. If insects invade, if moisture spoils the harvest, if rats discover an opening, months of work can disappear. Families inspect storage constantly. Clay seals are checked. Granaries remain carefully protected. Food is wealth, perhaps the greatest wealth an ordinary family can possess. As shadows slowly lengthen, a hunting party returns from nearby marshlands carrying ducks caught among the reeds. The catch is modest. Still, everyone smiles. Fresh meat means variety. Variety means celebration. The hunters describe patiently waiting among papyrus, while birds flew overhead, listening for the perfect opportunity. Even hunting requires patience more than speed. The Nile provides generously, but only for those willing to wait. You notice how little anyone wastes. Vegetable scraps feed animals. Animal manure fertilizes fields. Broken baskets become fuel for cooking fires. Old rope becomes new rope after careful repair. The idea of throwing useful things away would seem almost unbelievable. Resources demand respect, because replacing them is difficult. As evening approaches, the intense afternoon heat finally begins surrendering. The breeze returns. Children play more freely. Workers straighten aching backs after another long day. Conversations grow louder. Someone begins singing softly while repairing a fishing net. Others quietly join the melody. No audience watches. No performance is planned. Music simply becomes another way to end a difficult day. You realize something quietly important. People here rarely chase luxury. They chase stability. Enough bread, enough grain, enough fish, enough water, enough health to wake tomorrow and do everything again. That is success. Thousands of years later, people will admire golden masks, jeweled treasures, and magnificent tombs. Yet none of those treasures matter very much if ordinary families cannot fill their storage jars before winter. Civilizations rise because people eat. Empires survive because farmers wake before dawn. Kings may command armies, but bread quietly rules them all. As the warm scent of freshly baked loaves drifts across the evening village and the Nile reflects the fading golden light, you carry another basket of grain toward home. It is not glamorous work. No one will remember your name. No monument will celebrate today's harvest. Yet without ordinary hands like yours, ancient Egypt could never have fed itself. And tomorrow, the search for food begins all over again. Even after a long day of work, there is one question that quietly follows you everywhere. What will the Nile do next? No one in your village can answer with complete certainty. You can watch the river. You can study the clouds. You can remember what happened last year, or what your grandparents told you about the years before that. But in the end, the Nile decides for itself, and everyone else simply adapts. As the evening breeze cools your skin, you walk toward the riverbank, where its broad waters glide silently through the fading sunlight. At first glance, everything appears peaceful. Papyrus reeds sway gently. Birds settle into their nests. Fishermen pull their reed boats onto shore, while children skip stones across the calm surface. It almost feels impossible that this beautiful river can also become the greatest source of anxiety in your life. Yet every Egyptian knows the truth. Without the annual flood, the fields would dry. Without fresh silt, crops would weaken. Without water, villages would disappear beneath the surrounding desert. The Nile is generous. But generosity is never guaranteed. Each summer, people begin watching for the first signs. Has the water risen? Is it arriving early, late? Too quickly? Too slowly? Conversations throughout the village slowly shift toward the river. Nobody ignores it. Even the oldest villagers admit they never stop worrying. An ideal flood is almost magical. The river gently overflows its banks, spreading rich black silt across the farmland before quietly retreating. When everything happens exactly right, next year's harvest promises abundance. The soil becomes rich. Seeds grow quickly. Families smile more often. Granaries slowly fill. Life feels secure, but nature rarely aims for perfection. Sometimes the flood arrives weak. The river barely spreads beyond its usual banks. The fertile soil receives too little fresh silt. Fields begin drying. Harvests shrink. Everyone notices. Even children sense the growing tension. Meals become slightly smaller. Storage jars are opened more carefully. Nothing is wasted. Again, sometimes the opposite happens. The Nile rises higher than expected. Much higher. At first, villagers welcome the water. Then it keeps coming. Mud brick walls soften. Animal pens disappear beneath muddy currents. Footpaths vanish. Homes closest to the river become dangerous. Families rush to carry grain, tools, and sleeping mats onto higher ground. Children cling tightly to parents. Goats complain loudly. Donkeys refuse to cooperate, as if flooding were somehow a personal inconvenience designed specifically to annoy them. If donkeys could file official complaints, they almost certainly would. You cannot stop the river. You can only prepare. Neighbors work together, building temporary barriers from mud, reeds, baskets, and whatever materials happen to be available. Some floods spare the village. Others leave everyone rebuilding for months. The strongest houses survive. The weakest collapse. Nobody celebrates another family's loss. Because next year, the flood may choose differently. After the waters finally retreat, another challenge begins. Mud. Everywhere. The streets disappear beneath thick layers of wet earth. Homes require repairs. Irrigation canals must be rebuilt. Fields need careful inspection before planting begins again. The flood gives life. It also creates enormous work. Still, most people remain grateful. Because the alternative is far worse. Drought. A word nobody enjoys hearing. Weeks pass. Then months. The river remains lower than expected. Canals carry less water. Cracks appear across drying fields. The green landscape slowly loses its color. Farmers stand silently beside crops they know cannot survive much longer. There is very little anyone can do. You cannot persuade the Nile. You cannot command rain. You simply wait and hope. The village changes during difficult years. People speak more quietly. Meals become simpler. Fishing becomes more important. Wild plants are gathered whenever possible. Families begin helping one another even more than usual. No one truly survives alone. Children notice adults whispering after sunset. The conversations are always the same. Will the river rise? How much grain remains? Can another season be endured? These worries are as much a part of ancient Egypt as the pyramids themselves. Centuries later, travelers may admire colossal stone monuments and imagine Egypt as a land of endless stability. Standing here beside the Nile, you understand something different. Everything depends upon balance. Too much water, disaster. Too little water, disaster. Only the narrow space between those extremes allows civilization to flourish. As twilight settles across the valley, priests offer prayers in nearby temples. Farmers quietly offer their own silent hopes while looking across the river. Whether through ritual or simple faith, everyone seeks comfort from the same uncertainty. The stars begin appearing above the desert. The Nile reflects their light like polished glass. It looks peaceful once more, almost innocent. Yet tomorrow morning, thousands of ordinary Egyptians will wake and immediately look toward the river again, not because it is beautiful, although it certainly is, but because every loaf of bread, every healthy child, every successful harvest, every comfortable home, depends upon what the Nile chooses to do next. You finally turn away from the river and begin walking back toward your village beneath the first stars of evening. The day's work is finished, for now. But deep inside, everyone knows the greatest worker in ancient Egypt has never been the farmer. It has always been the river itself, and no one, not even a pharaoh, can ever truly control it. The Nile has given you another season to work. Now your body must pay the price. As dawn fades into another bright Egyptian morning, yesterday's aches have not disappeared. Your shoulders still feel heavy from carrying water. Your hands remain rough from gripping wooden tools. The muscles in your legs complain with every step across the packed earth outside your home. There is no such thing as a rest day. The crops cannot wait because your back hurts. The irrigation canals do not repair themselves. Animals still need feeding. Bread still needs baking. Life moves forward whether your body feels ready or not. You stretch slowly beneath the cool morning air, hoping the stiffness will ease before the sun begins its relentless climb. It helps. A little, not enough to matter. Around you, the village wakes exactly as it has countless mornings before. Smoke rises from clay ovens. Roosters announce the sunrise with impressive confidence. Goats wander wherever they please, apparently convinced that every garden belongs to them. Someone is already arguing with a stubborn donkey. The donkey appears to believe it has won. You cannot help smiling. Even after generations, some things never change. Soon you join a line of workers walking toward the fields. From a distance, the landscape looks peaceful. Palm trees sway gently beside the Nile. Birds circle overhead. Golden sunlight spreads across green farmland. If someone painted this scene on a temple wall, future generations might imagine life here was wonderfully relaxing. Your feet know better. The soil beneath them is uneven. The tools waiting ahead are heavy. The work never truly ends. Today's task begins with repairing an irrigation channel damaged during the previous week's flow of water. At first glance, it seems simple. Move mud. Shape the banks. Pack the soil tightly. Guide the water. Hours later, you discover how deceptively difficult simple work can become. The Egyptian sun rises higher. Sweat drips steadily onto the dark earth. Mud clings to your legs. Your shoulders burn from lifting heavy baskets filled with wet soil. Every movement demands effort. Nearby, another worker quietly hums while digging. Perhaps it distracts him from the strain. Perhaps he no longer notices. After years of repeating the same motions, the body learns remarkable endurance. It has no other choice. Once the irrigation channel flows correctly again, another job immediately replaces it. Harvesting reeds. Bundles of tall papyrus must be cut carefully near the river. The plants will become rope, mats, baskets, writing material for scribes. Even boats. A single plant serves countless purposes. Standing knee-deep in cool water offers brief relief from the heat. Tiny fish dart around your ankles. Dragonflies flash brilliant shades of blue and green across the marshes. For a moment, the work almost feels peaceful. Then your arms remind you how many bundles still remain. Each cut stalk joins another growing pile. Each bundle must be carried back to the village. The river gives generously. It rarely gives effortlessly. By midday, the heat becomes nearly overwhelming. The air itself feels heavy. Breathing seems slower. Workers pause briefly beneath whatever shade they can find. Usually that means a palm tree. Sometimes the shadow of a cart. Often there is no shade at all. You drink carefully from a clay jar. Water is precious. Even during short breaks, nobody wastes much time. Conversations stay simple. How are the crops? Did anyone see crocodiles farther downstream? Will tomorrow's work begin in the western fields? Practical questions. Practical lives. Nearby, stone workers shape limestone blocks for a local building project. The rhythmic sound echoes steadily through the warm afternoon. Tap, tap, tap. Every strike removes only a tiny fragment. Yet after thousands of careful blows, smooth blocks slowly emerge. Great buildings are never created quickly. They are built one patient movement at a time. You realize the same thing is true about your own life. One basket carried, one field planted, one canal repaired, one loaf baked. Ordinary days quietly become extraordinary civilizations. The afternoon brings another challenge. Transporting heavy grain sacks. Each sack weighs enough to make your shoulders ache before the journey even begins. Wooden sleds scrape across dusty paths. Donkeys pull patiently where they can. People pull where animals cannot. Nobody complains very loudly. Complaints do not lighten the load. Only teamwork does. As the sun slowly begins its descent, your hands are coated with dust. Tiny blisters have opened beneath old calluses. Your feet feel tired inside simple leather sandals. Even lifting a small basket now reminds you how many thousands of movements your body has completed since sunrise. Ancient Egyptian medicine understands some treatments. Herbal ointments, simple bandages, honey placed on wounds. Rest when possible. But rest remains a luxury. Tomorrow's work has already arrived. Evening finally approaches. The golden light softens. Birdsong replaces the steady rhythm of tools striking earth and stone. Workers begin the slow walk back toward the village. Nobody walks quickly now. Exhaustion has its own pace. Yet something remarkable happens along the way. People still laugh. Someone tells another joke about a donkey. Children race one another despite spending the day helping adults. A fisherman proudly carries home a modest catch. Neighbors greet one another with tired smiles. Hard work has not stolen kindness. Perhaps it has strengthened it. As you reach your home, you lower today's tools beside the doorway. Your arms feel heavier than the wooden hoe itself. Your back aches. Your knees protest. Your hands bear fresh scratches earned honestly beneath the Egyptian sun. No one will build a statue honoring this day's labor. No priest will record your efforts inside temple walls. History may never know your name, but every field that grows, every canal that carries water, every basket that holds grain, every village that survives, exists because ordinary people quietly accepted extraordinary amounts of work. You look once more across the fading Nile as evening settles over the valley. Tomorrow morning, your body will ache again, and before the first rays of sunlight reach the river, you will rise, pick up your tools, and begin all over again. Morning arrives once again, but today something feels different. One of your neighbors does not come out to greet the sunrise. Usually he is among the first to leave for the fields, carrying his wooden hoe over one shoulder while exchanging quiet jokes with everyone passing by. Today, his doorway remains still. Nobody says much at first. Illness is familiar here. It visits every family eventually. In ancient Egypt, even a small sickness can become a serious concern. There are no hospitals waiting just beyond the village, no pharmacies filled with medicines, no quick cures that allow someone to return to work the next morning. Instead, healing depends on experience, careful observation, simple remedies, and hope. As the village slowly begins another day, a few neighbors quietly step inside the family's home. The room is dim and cooler than the bright morning outside. Your neighbor lies on a woven reed mat beneath a light linen cloth. His breathing is steady, though slower than usual. A clay bowl of cool water rests nearby. Someone has placed damp cloths across his forehead to ease the fever. No one knows exactly what caused it. Perhaps contaminated water. Perhaps an insect bite. Perhaps an illness carried from another village by traveling merchants. Without modern knowledge, many diseases remain mysterious. People simply know that someone who looked perfectly healthy yesterday can suddenly become weak today. The village healer arrives carrying a small woven basket. Inside are herbs gathered from the Nile Valley, fragrant oils, honey, crushed minerals, and simple bandages made from clean linen. Years of experience have taught the healer which plants soothe pain, which herbs calm stomachs, and which mixtures seem to help wounds heal more quickly. Some treatments truly work. Others rely as much on faith as medicine. Honey is carefully spread over a deep cut on another worker's arm. It helps protect the wound from dirt and often encourages healing. Willow bark is prepared for aching joints. Herbal drinks are brewed to reduce fevers. Fresh linen bandages replace dirty ones. These simple remedies are valuable because they are among the best tools available. Yet even the most skilled healer cannot cure everything. Outside, work continues. The fields still need tending. Animals still need feeding. Life rarely pauses because someone is sick, but neighbors quietly help where they can. One family gathers extra firewood. Another shares bread. Children fetch water for the household. No one calls it charity. It is simply what communities do. You remember your own injuries. The deep scrape across your shin from falling beside an irrigation canal. The blister that became infected after harvesting reeds. The aching shoulder that never fully recovered after carrying heavy grain sacks. Every scar tells a story. Some stories heal, others stay forever. Work itself creates constant dangers. A sharp bronze blade slips. A heavy stone crushes a foot. A donkey suddenly kicks without warning. A fishing hook catches someone's hand. A falling basket strikes another worker's head. None of these accidents are unusual. They are simply accepted as part of life. You visit a nearby workshop where stonemasons continue shaping limestone blocks. Clouds of pale dust drift through the warm air. The workers wrap simple cloths across their faces whenever the dust becomes too thick. It helps, but not completely. Years of breathing fine stone dust leave many older craftsmen coughing more often than they once did. Carpenters face different dangers: splinters, sharp tools, heavy timber. Potters work beside blazing kilns hot enough to burn exposed skin in an instant. Blacksmiths endure flying sparks and intense heat while shaping bronze. Every profession asks the body for something. Eventually, the body remembers. Children are not protected from these realities. From an early age, they see wounds cleaned, broken bones carefully wrapped with wooden splints, burns cooled with water before herbs are applied. Illness becomes another ordinary lesson of growing up, not frightening, simply familiar. As midday approaches, the intense Egyptian heat creates another invisible challenge. Water. Workers drink whenever possible, but water left standing too long can become unsafe. Nobody understands tiny unseen organisms. They only know that certain water sometimes brings sickness. Freshly brewed beer often becomes a safer everyday drink because the brewing process reduces some dangers. It is weak, nourishing, and common at nearly every meal, not a luxury. A necessity. You pause beneath a palm tree and notice an elderly farmer slowly massaging his swollen knees. He smiles anyway. Years of bending, lifting, carrying, digging, and harvesting have shaped every movement he makes. His hands are twisted with age. His back no longer stands completely straight, yet tomorrow he will probably return to the fields. Because retirement, as future generations imagine it, does not truly exist for most ordinary Egyptians. People work while they can. Then they work a little longer. The afternoon passes quietly. Your sick neighbor remains inside. The fever has not worsened, neither has it disappeared. His family waits patiently. The healer promises to return before sunset. Hope becomes its own kind of medicine. As evening approaches, cooler air finally drifts across the Nile once more. Birds settle into the reeds. The village grows quieter. Someone lights a small oil lamp inside the sick man's home. Its warm glow spills gently through the doorway. You realize something historians often overlook. Ancient Egypt was not only a civilization of temples, pyramids, and kings. It was also a civilization of ordinary people caring for injured friends, sharing food with struggling neighbors, comforting frightened children, and hoping simple remedies would be enough to carry loved ones into another sunrise. Sometimes they were. Sometimes they were not. That uncertainty never disappeared. It simply became another part of everyday life beside the Nile. And tomorrow morning, whether healthy or ill, the village will awaken once again beneath the same ancient sun. Another sunrise greets the Nile, and with it comes a different kind of responsibility. Today your work will not begin in the fields. Instead, you find yourself preparing for a journey to the nearest marketplace. A trip that happens only when supplies must be replaced, goods need to be traded, or news from neighboring villages becomes too important to ignore. It sounds like a welcome break from farming. It rarely is. You rise before dawn as usual, helping load woven baskets onto the back of a patient donkey. Inside are bundles of flax, fresh vegetables, jars of grain, and a few carefully crafted baskets your family hopes to exchange for items you cannot easily produce yourselves. Nothing is packed carelessly. Every object has value. A broken basket means fewer goods. A cracked jar means lost grain. Even the rope securing the load is checked twice before anyone begins walking. The journey starts beneath cool morning skies. At first, the path follows the familiar banks of the Nile, where fishermen already push reed boats into the water while birds circle lazily overhead. The peaceful scenery almost makes you forget that several hours of walking still lie ahead. Roads, by future standards, barely exist. Most are simply worn paths created by generations of travelers moving between villages. Loose sand shifts beneath your sandals. Small stones test your balance. Occasionally, the trail narrows so much that two loaded donkeys struggle to pass one another. Nobody complains. There is little point. This is simply how travel works. You soon meet another family heading toward the same marketplace. They carry clay pottery balanced carefully inside straw padding. A little farther ahead, A fisherman transports dried fish wrapped in woven reeds. Behind you, another trader guides goats that seem determined to stop and eat every plant they pass. Apparently, goats believe every journey should include several snack breaks. The people walking beside you laugh quietly. The goats remain completely unconcerned. As the morning grows warmer, conversation becomes the greatest entertainment. News travels through travelers. Someone speaks about a village farther north where the Nile flooded especially well this year. Another describes repairs to a local temple. Someone else claims crocodiles have been seen unusually close to several fishing spots. Whether every story is true hardly matters. Information spreads one conversation at a time. After hours of walking, the marketplace slowly comes into view. From a distance, it appears as a colorful collection of awnings, wooden stalls, reed shelters, animals, and hundreds of people moving in every direction. The quiet rhythm of village life suddenly gives way to cheerful noise. Voices overlap. Donkeys bray. Children weave between adults. Merchants proudly display their goods. The air smells of fresh bread, dried fish, herbs, leather, smoke, and warm dust. It is busy. Very busy. You guide your donkey toward an open space and carefully unload each basket. Trade begins almost immediately. Money, as future generations know it, is not always part of ordinary exchanges. Instead, value is measured differently. A basket of onions might equal several fish. Fine linen could be exchanged for grain. Well-made pottery may earn fresh vegetables, rope, or tools. Everything depends on quality, timing, and negotiation. You watch experienced traders carefully examine every item before agreeing to an exchange. They inspect woven baskets for tight craftsmanship. They tap clay jars, listening for hidden cracks. They weigh grain with practiced eyes rather than scales. Years of experience become their greatest currency. Nearby, craftsmen display beautiful bronze knives, chisels, fishing hooks, and farming tools. Each tool represents countless hours of skilled labor. Replacing worn equipment is expensive. Most families repair old tools repeatedly before finally accepting the need for new ones. A little farther down the marketplace, colorful beads, carved amulets, perfumes, and finely woven linen catch everyone's attention. These are not necessities. They are small luxuries. Many people admire them. Far fewer can afford them. Children stop to watch musicians playing simple flutes, while another performer tells humorous stories about foolish donkeys, forgetful fishermen, and boastful neighbors. Laughter spreads quickly. Even hard-working adults pause for a few moments. Entertainment, like fresh bread, feels especially valuable after long weeks of labor. Near the edge of the market, scribes sit patiently beside rolls of fresh papyrus. Most ordinary villagers cannot read or write. When someone needs an important message recorded or a legal agreement written down, the scribe becomes essential. You watch one carefully painting elegant hieroglyphs with steady hands. Each symbol appears almost effortless. You know it requires years of practice. Knowledge itself is a profession. The afternoon sun grows stronger. Trading slows slightly. Families gather beneath shaded awnings to share simple meals of bread, onions, dates, dried fish, and weak beer. Stories continue flowing as freely as the Nile. New friendships begin. Old friends meet again after many months apart. Market days are not only about exchanging goods, they are about exchanging lives. Eventually, your own trading is complete. You return home carrying fresh rope, repaired tools, a small bag of salt, and a few other necessities impossible to produce within your own village. The donkey's load looks different now, but its weight feels almost exactly the same. The walk home seems quieter. Perhaps everyone is simply tired. Perhaps each traveler is thinking about tomorrow's work already waiting. The marketplace offered excitement, but excitement never lasts long. Fields still need tending. Water still needs carrying. Animals still need feeding. As the familiar outline of your village appears beneath the warm evening sky, you realize something historians often overlook. Ancient Egypt was connected not only by the Nile, but by countless ordinary journeys like yours. Every path worn into the earth, every conversation shared between strangers, every basket traded honestly, quietly held the civilization together.